Thank you very much all for joining our today's Net Talk. We have a very interesting and hot topic today because it is the very day of Saba Saba. We say it in Tanzania. Saba means 7. That is the 7th of July. And usually this day is a public holiday in Tanzania where people celebrate the agricultural day. Now, the UN has announced the 7th of July of every year now to be the World Kiswahili Day. So the language of Kiswahili is given this special attention on the 7th of July. And for this day, we thought we could have a net talk about this and invite people from Tanzania and others who are not from Tanzania to tell us a little bit what they think of Kiswahili as a language itself spoken in East Africa, or what are other opportunities that can be caught with this language. What can you do? What else can you do maybe in the continent? And I am very happy and honored to introduce to you the 3 people that you can see, our today's speakers. We have 3 of them, and that is Dyoniz Kindata, Sharifa, and Kodji. Let me start with Dyoniz, who is sitting on my right in front of my screen. Dyoniz is a Tanzanian Swahili poet currently living in Lüneburg in Germany. He is a research assistant. Dyoniz is also pursuing his doctorate at Leuphana University in the Department of Philosophy and Social Sciences. He holds a master's degree in African verbal and visual arts with a concentration in literature and linguistics from the University of Bayreuth, and his Bachelor of Arts in Education, that is French and Swahili. He completed that at the University of Dar es Salaam in Tanzania. Dyoniz is also a qualified lecturer in Kiswahili as a foreign language and has been teaching Kiswahili in Tanzania, in Dar es Salaam, in Bonn, in Nuremberg, in Bayreuth. His research interests include, among many others, communication studies, Swahili literature, and pre-colonial East African studies. So that is one of the speakers. Dyoniz, can you wave so people can see? And I'm also very happy to introduce to you Sharifa Mohammed Chembele, who is in Tanzania. It was her free day today, but we managed to book her for this hour to join our net talk from Tanzania, live from Tanzania. And yeah, Sharifa also has a bachelor in education with Kiswahili as a main subject and English linguistics. And she is also versed in teaching German as a foreign language and has been studying in Dar es Salaam and is also currently based in Dar es Salaam. So, Sharifa, Chembele, you're warmly welcome. And last, that is Kodji. Is not from Tanzania. Studied German as a foreign language and pedagogy in Cameroon, and has a multilingual master degree in language interaction culture from the University of Bayreuth. He currently works as a youth worker at the Evangelical Youth in Nuremberg and studies part-time the distance learning course Sustainable Development Cooperation at the Rheinland-Pfälzische Technische Universität in Kaiserslautern, Landau. So A warm welcome to the three of you. And yeah, so you will be with us answering some questions regarding this day. So now I would like to pose the first question to my country people here, Dyoniz and Sharifa, to maybe maybe Sharifa, you can start by telling us very short, 3 sentences, if it's possible, the history of Kiswahili. How did it evolve over the centuries? How short can you make it?
Thank you. Kiswahili language started before the colonial era, during the colonialism, and even after the colonial era. And it was influenced by so many factors like trade, colonialism, educational factors, etc.
Sorry. Yeah, thank you for that question. I just wanted to add some of the information. I mean, I also agree with what Sharifa has said. The trajectory or the historical account of the involvement of Swahili language can be traced from the beginning of the mid-17th century and 18th century, where now the people from the coastal region of Indian Ocean were in contact with the people from Persia and Arab. So from the 18th century, the Arab people came to East Africa through the monsoon winds. I would like to share something. Okay, but it's okay. I don't have to share anything. So they come to the Indian Ocean through the monsoon wind, and then they interacted with the people. And then later, after many centuries, they came the Portuguese people around the 16th century. And the Portuguese people had interaction with the people there and also introduced some of the new words to the language. And then the Portuguese people were then taken over. And then the Arabs, they came around the 17th century, so the 18th century. And then it was later on solidified through the slave trade. And then and where now the Swahili language became very rampant along the coast, and as well as inland East Africa. I'm talking about Kenya, to the coast of Tanzania, and the Mogadishu. And then later we see now the Germans comes, and also the British, and then during the independence, now the usage of Swahili becomes for Tanzania as a primordial usage, or a primordial kind of occupy the central role in the government. Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. I know this is a very mean question, because you can't really explain it in a very short way, a history of something. But thank you still. I maybe sum up and say through trade, the coastal line of Tanganyika, Tanzania, and then it went into the interior. I think maybe that makes it as a summary of it. Sra, would you also like to say something about this? Or would you pass?
As you know, I'm not from Tanzania, but
yes.
I have some contact with Tanzanian people, or during my study, I read some books about language contact and language family. Also, what Dyoniz said, I remember it. Most of the lexical item, I mean, vocabulary, come from Arabic. Maybe, but later I will try to say that Swahili could be maybe a Pan-African language, because it's connected to Arabic, and Arabic it is spoken too in Africa, but more later.
Okay, yeah, so that brings me to the next question. Having spoken about the history, when it started, how did it become the most widely spoken language in Africa, because it's not just in Tanzania where you find Kiswahili. Yeah, you can pick up from here.
Yeah, so thank you. What I know, Dyoniz can correct it, it is false. Swahili, it is spoken in Tanzania, Kenya, in part of Somalia, and now as an official language in Rwanda. But in Cameroon, Swahili, it is not famous as a language of Africa. The people learn more European language. And for me, it is maybe due to colonization, I don't know. But my first contact to Swahili was during my study. My German teacher at the University of Marwa in Northern Cameroon did his PhD in Germany in Bayreuth, and he learned Swahili in Bayreuth. When he went back to Cameroon, and he thought, yeah, we have to learn Swahili. We learn now German, French, there are European foreign language. We have to learn Swahili because Swahili, it is African language. Of course, this is foreign language, but African language, the language of our network. Apart that, I don't know if Swahili, it is taught, as I mean, learned in institutional organization in Cameroon, not in Cameroon, I mean in Francophone countries. Dyoniz, maybe you can add something.
I just also want to add something. There's also always, when people also mention countries which speak Swahili, always they forget Mozambique. There's a part of Mozambique which also they also speak a kind of dialect, which I should also add. I mean, we also have native speaker from there. So from my feeling, I mean, if also we look on the history, why then Swahili was rampant, or why this increment of the countries which speak Swahili. This can also be traced from Nyerere himself after the independence and his ideology of Ujamaa, which was very convincing to other African leaders, and due to this idea, then back then Tanzania was one of the country apart from Ethiopia which was using Swahili as a means of communication apart from Amharic in Ethiopia. So I think this also brought a kind of motivation also to other countries willing to learn Swahili and also taking it as a language of with the different purposes. Yes.
And sorry, I'd also like to add something there. Okay, as I've already said previously, the spread of Kiswahili in Africa or worldwide can be traced back in the history before the colonial era. There were traders along the coast, the East African coast. They were trading, they used to do trade, and these traders were from different communities or cultural backgrounds, and they couldn't have a common language that could help them to communicate. They decided to use Kiswahili as in a mixture of different languages, and they use it to communicate. That is how it helped it to spread. And during the colonial era, or before the coming of Europeans, the Arab came and they found people doing trade along the coast, the East African coast, and they also adopted the language. So they also used that Kiswahili language that was used by the traders to do the trade with the coast people. And when the European came, they also used Kiswahili, which helped them in their administration activities. Yeah, we know there is direct rule and indirect rule. They used it in their indirect rule to communicate with chiefs and after the colonial era, Kiswahili has spread widely because it is highly used in education. It is one among the teaching subjects, and Kiswahili is used as the medium of instructions for government primary schools. And yeah, I think that's the reason.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, yeah, most of you are already going deep into the questions, but Dyoniz, let me pick up from what you said when you mentioned Nyerere, the first president of Tanzania. You cannot not speak of independence and the struggle for independence of the Tanzania nations, which brings me to this next question. What do you think, what role do you think Kiswahili played in the struggle for independence and in the building of Tanzania as a nation? Sharifa, no, Dyoniz, you can start.
Yes, yes, I'm going to reply to that, but I want also to say something which is always people, they forget when they also say the history of Swahili. Apart from having the contact with the Arabs and before the colonization, the German played a very crucial role because during the German colonization, they happened to start in the Latinization of the language because it was written in Ajami, now in the Latin script. So the German under the Ludwig Kraft, they standardized it by taking from Ajami to Latin script, and then they provided the newspaper and etc. During the British, there was also interterritorial community which standardized the language with the poet Sherman Robert and etc. But those are just something that I want to mention that also they are very crucial. And coming to the issue of Nyerere, Nyerere is being regarded as one of the promoters of Swahili. I mean, referring to the TANU, which is the part which was involved in the struggle for the independence in its formation in 1928, there was a debate in which language should be used also for the conduction of the meeting. And they decided that later the Swahili can be used. And after that, it was in the preceding years also being implemented that Swahili could be used as a signifying tool. And even during the independence struggle, and then in 1961, and then this term of Uhuru was then evolved. From the time on, then the language was used in the political rallies, campaigns, and etc. So, and more importantly, one can also trace during the inception of Ujamaa. Ujamaa the idea was evolved in 1967, and during the Arusha Declaration in 1977 is where now this the Ujamaa ideology was more implemented, but Swahili was used in all of that. This villagization principle and etc. So for me, I think Swahili was used as independent struggle because it was used as a tool for connecting people, unifying people, but also it was very easy for politicians to communicate their intention in political rallies using one language, which by then was comprehended of about 65, 70, because also the number was increasing as time goes on.
Okay,
yes.
Thank you very much. So Swahili played a role in unifying people to gain independence and also in nation building.
Yes.
Sharifa, what are your views? What role did Swahili play in the struggle for independence and in building Tanzania as a nation?
I think Dyoniz explained a lot, most of the things, but I also want to say something. During the fight for the independence, we're all aware that Tanzania has around 120 ethnic groups, and each ethnic group speaks their own language. So it was hard for them to communicate, but the African leaders, or their leaders by then, including Nyerere, opted Kiswahili as the language which could unite all of the people to fight for independence. So they could use things that would motivate them, like Swahili songs and etc., to motivate them all fight for independence. And they could also feel as one. Nobody was feeling left behind because nobody owns Kiswahili. Kiswahili does not belong to any ethnic group. So that, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I just want to underline, it avoids tribalism, which is very peculiar in East Africa, apart from Kenya.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay, unifying people, bringing people together, and avoid the separation that was maybe also caused by colonialism and also within the ethnic groups that are there. Zra, I will also pose a question to you, but maybe I will not use Kiswahili because we've heard a lot. What role does a language play in the struggle for independence in Cameroon, for example? I'm sure you also underwent this struggle for independence. Do you think that languages played a role there?
Yeah, the language played a role, but differently to Swahili case. I mean, that's a good example what Dyoniz say and Sharifa, that Swahili played the role to unify the people. You know, in our countries, African countries, there are many ethnic group, and in Cameroon, and particularly, I mean, in Francophone countries, the promote this division between ethnic group. So it's not like in Tanzania or in Kenya. In Cameroon, for example, there are more than 200 languages. That language is not a dialect. And it is good for government when they want to divide the people and to manage them. Yeah, that is very difficult to decide to say, okay, we adopt one language, one local language as an official language. I think it is an opposite to Kiswahili model in Cameroon, and I mean in African Francophone countries. And we need Kiswahili's model in this part of Africa.
Okay. Thank you very much on emphasizing on that point of you can rule better when you divide people, divide and rule. So yeah, that is a type of
management.
Yeah, management ruling that can apparently work if you divide people rather than when they unite. Now, Sharifa, you've hinted or explained to us a bit in your previous remarks that Kiswahili is being used as a teaching language in primary schools in Tanzania. But we also know that it is not solely used as a teaching language, as we've all been talking so nicely about Kiswahili. There comes a time where it switches. And then we proceed with English as a language of instruction, and that goes up to university level. So primary school goes from class 1 to class 7. That is all in Kiswahili, in case you didn't know. And then from secondary education, it starts at class, let me say, 8. Everything changes, and it all goes on in English as the language of instruction, except when you teach the subject Swahili. Now, why has the status of English been elevated or placed higher than Kiswahili? Because it is taught in the higher education. And can the UNESCO Kiswahili Language Day, the fact that we celebrate this day now, do you think it changes people's perception of Kiswahili as a language now? Sharifa.
Yes, thank you. We agree that Kiswahili is now spoken in many countries in Africa, or is highly used in Africa than earlier, but English is still highly used compared to Kiswahili. And this is because English is highly used in mass media. So when people need to get information, about so many different things going on in the world, English is the language. And many writings, researches, findings, many books are written in English. And this is also used in education, is highly used in education, as in for students. Many things that they need to find, they need to know about, are written in English. Also, science and technology, scientific and technological findings are all in English compared to Kiswahili. And in terms of vocabularies, we're saying Kiswahili is still growing. It doesn't have so many vocabularies compared to English, because we are not so developed compared to English. So we still depend on English researchers, English scholars to do everything. So that's a bit hard to compare English and Kiswahili. And this UNESCO, which came up with this Kiswahili Day, I think this will bring awareness to Kiswahili speakers to feel like they are recognized. Yes, worldwide, they are recognized and they will feel not left behind. And this will encourage individuals to learn Kiswahili, and it will promote the culture of Swahili speakers. People need to find out what Kiswahili is, the history of Kiswahili speakers, and the background and everything. I think that will create or promote awareness to Kiswahili speakers. I think maybe.
Okay, thank you very much. So yeah, just to sum up, Kiswahili, many people use, or English has a different status because mass media, literature, all these things where you can get information from are in English, and Tanzanians don't want to be left out or cut out, so it gets a different level. And you do agree that this UNESCO having pronounced today as the day for Kiswahili, that it does something. It brings the pride back. Thank you. Dyoniz, you're burning to talk.
No, it's fine, because I'm totally agree with what Sharifa has said, but I have another kind of point of view. For my opinion, when we're talking about the institution, documents are written in English, but and etc. I think the English used in Tanzania, it has a kind of it has a different level. It's not like in Kenya. For me, I have the feeling that there's first of all fear, and there's this people, they as you have said, they have the fear that they could be alienated from this kind of a globalized world. But the level of English in Tanzania is very low, and I mean, apart from being low, that's why even the politicians, they have the fears that when we implement then the usage of Swahili, then it's going to be even worse. But people they forget that speaking the language and learning through in a certain language does not imply that one will master the language correctly. And concerning the issue of terminology usage in Swahili, the Turkey or the Kiswahili department at the University of Dar es Salaam, they have tried to translate the books from Swahili, from English to Swahili, the textbook in secondary school. And then the public, they say the terminology which were used in this textbook, they're very difficult. We cannot come along with the textbook, and then say, and now we have the feeling that we want to use Swahili as a medium of instruction, and then we say we cannot come along with the terminology using the book. So it's a kind of contradictory thing. But I think if our leaders now or politicians, it's not agree, but if we have like a kind of a good consensus, we can also implement also using Swahili and then also not being alienated from the world, because English will also be taught as a compulsory language. But what I think also the UN, having this Swahili Day or the 7th of July, it's really brings an awareness, an awareness to Swahili culture and history. And maybe, we don't know, someday, I mean, because it's an ongoing debate, medium of communication in Tanzania, etc. Maybe one day it's going to have some fruit or an end product. We don't know when, but it's good that the thing that we are doing here and also around the world during this day.
Okay, thank you very much, Dyoniz. So you think it's just an excuse saying that all the literatures are in Kiswahili, and you believe that if there's a will, there will be a way also to enforce this. That's how I would sum it up. Thank you very much. And now to Sra, what are your opinions hearing these debates here on two languages being used in one educational system in Tanzania? Maybe you were not aware, maybe you are now aware, but what do you think? Why would a European language be placed, have a different status than a local language that is a lingua franca? And do you think with the pronunciation of the UNESCO of this Kiswahili Language Day, that it might change people's perception, or it is already changing people's perception of their language?
First of all, the UNESCO can make the good program, can decide, can make proposal. The people like us, we can be motivated, but the problem is the government, the institution. They are agree to change the decision. I mean, will come from them. If I take the case of my country, Cameroon, I said that in Cameroon we have more than 200 languages. Which language adopt like official language? This is the question. And in school, we learn English. I mean, all subjects are in English and in French. And after that, we can choose either German, Chinese, Italian, a lot of European language, and Japanese too. Where local language are learned is just in the church. The church play a very, very good role. I mean, in North Cameroon, for example, they translate the Bible in local languages. If you are not in the church, you don't have contact with, with script of your mother tongue. And when I was in Cameroon, I have this chance to go to the church and to read the Bible in my mother tongue. But other people don't have this chance. So I mean, we need the decision from the government to take it. Okay, we have to introduce our local language in the educational system, and it is not easy. It's not easy, but we have to take this decision. And according to Swahili, Swahili is a good example. I mean, not like as a language, I mean as a model, how the East African countries adopted Swahili as an official language, as a regional language. And we can use this resource to this model, to adopt maybe Swahili too, because Swahili has good connection to Bantu language, and the most of African countries' languages are Bantu, belong to Bantu family. So to summarize, in Cameroon, it is another case, and maybe I hope maybe we will change, but now I think we have to wait.
Thank you very much, Stra, for giving us, yeah, an opportunity to also hear the position or the status in Cameroon, how it is. And I think from what you're saying, you're seeing an opportunity here. And you agree with Dyoniz that it's the institutions that block it. You gave, I think, a very nice example of books, songbooks in church. You also made me think, yeah, you really find them in your own language. And if that is possible, I mean, yeah. So that could be an opportunity.
I want to add something. It is connected to culture too. You are Anglophone, and Francophone people are extraverti. This is yeah. All tastes are from European countries are good, and the local tastes, local culture, local languages are bad. That this perception cannot motivate the people to change the mentality.
Okay. There are some burning questions in the chat here, and I think I'll just throw them in right now, and then we can continue with our questions, because they fit into what you've explained right now. Like Zra, there's a direct question to you, and are mother tongues not taught in schools at all? That is a question from the chat.
No, also in Cameroon, no, they try to teach to train the teachers, but the people are not don't have interest for this. To teach the program. Maybe per year, just five teachers per year. It is not enough.
Too many languages.
Yeah. So,
yeah.
And it is very difficult to train the teachers for 200 languages.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. That is the problem.
Yeah, it's too many languages, so you have to think, which language will I choose? So local languages are usually taught from home because that's the setting. Another question here, I think this could go well with Dyoniz and Sharifa. I'll just read it. Is Swahili also the language of science? And what does this mean for the transfer of knowledge, for the knowledge that is contained and passed on in Kiswahili? What might be lost when science discourse is conducted in English? As in, if the language of instruction is in English and you're teaching a science subject, for example, do the students really grasp what is being taught, or what could be lost there along the way? You went to school in Tanzania, you've done science for some times, and then you move to the languages. But I think this question is also really interesting, directed to science, and we know science students are not language students. So what do you think? What is your perception? Sharifa?
I think I was going to talk about it. The fact that English is used in schools as a medium of instruction, I think it doesn't, the teachers do not deliver what they're supposed to deliver, because they're somehow do it, they do under deliver because of the language barrier, and the students who are learning do not understand well English, so they're not getting what they're supposed to get. But if Kiswahili was being taught as Ama was being used as a medium of instruction, that would be easier for them. That would be easier for teachers to deliver what's exactly needed to be delivered, and the students would be easier to get what's exactly they need to get. But because they both use English and it happens to be not their common language, that's a bit hard.
Yeah, Dyoniz, what would you say?
Yeah, you're talking about science, not in German, says Wissenschaft, also Naturwissenschaft.
Yeah, Naturwissenschaft. Like, you know,
Okay.
you have language students, they already know languages. So for them, it's like, you know, a piece of cake. But someone who studies science, who wants to understand how things work.
Okay.
What could be lost along the way in the teaching process, even for the teacher? And Sharifa gave an example.
Yeah. So the question here comes to the issue of knowledge transfer. So in the context of Tanzania, the setting, I think also Sharifa and also Dorcas, you can also give us testimony that in a lot of government schools that they teach in English. I mean, they don't teach in English, they write on a blackboard in English, but they explain things in Swahili so that the student could understand better. And come to your question, is Swahili can be used, is Swahili a language of science? Yeah, Swahili is a language of science, but what can be posed there is the issue of terminology that I have spoken, that there are a lot of scarcity of terminologies, even though that the department or Bakita and other regulatory bodies, they try to find some of the terminologies to accommodate in the usage in science subject, but there is not a full governmental support on implementing that. So Kiswahili is a language of science only if there is a support in developing some of the terminologies which can also be used in teaching science subjects. And yes, yeah. And in the term of knowledge transfer, as I've said, that just to repeat, that the subjects are being taught in English, but the knowledge transfer is being performed in Swahili. So Swahili is an intermediary language, even though the language or the medium of instruction is English. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Dyoniz, also for reminding us on our school days.
Yeah,
it's true. Sometimes the teachers would switch into Kiswahili to explain something better for the students to understand.
Yeah.
And I think this is why Kiswahili has always been upheld. Sra, you want to also add into this discussion? You're welcome.
Yeah. I mean, your question is very related to language philosophy. I mean, sciences. What is sciences? We have our own sciences. I mean, in our culture. And if it is the new object, I mean, discovered here in Europe or in America, maybe you have to just to transfer just the name and the lexic. But there are some objects connected to our culture, and we can understand it from our perspective. So if Dyoniz say, we tested English because technology and sciences are more developed here. So the more more lexical item is from USA or from Europe. So it's as the case in Cameroon too. So it is very difficult to teach sciences, I think, in African languages, even if it is maybe our sciences connected to our culture. So we have to distinguish between concept and lexical item. Yeah.
Maybe just to add there, we until now in Tanzania, there are some of the books which are already translated from Form 1 to some of them to Form 3, chemistry, physics, biology, they are already there. But the public say that the book were introduced at the it was a kind of celebration I forgot in University of Dar es Salaam. The people say it has a difficult words. We cannot learn using Swahili with this word. I mean, we cannot come along. This is also a problem. And there's the issue of what's it called? Arabization. I don't know. Arabization. I mean, the language specialists, when they want to find a certain foreign word, for example, from technology and etc., they avoid using some of the English words. They try to find words from Arabic to replace the foreign words. And this is also what some people that were saying, no, that also we can also have diversity. We can also borrow from Bantu languages, for example. And I mean, and we still have many options, but the thing now should be considered that in order for the language to proceed, one should consider the people who use the language. That's very important. And the Bereitschaft, or we can say the readiness, the readiness of the public should also be ready. I have the feeling that the public is not ready. I think the Dorcas also have some friends who send their children to Uganda to study, but they avoid to send their kids into. They don't want to send their kids in Tanzania because they have a fear that the language, the medium instruction is not very strong. We also have the issue of international schools and etc. And I have the thing that we somehow we are staying in the middle. We want something what we don't want. we are not so rigid on that.
So I think we come back to that willingness, and it's interesting to hear books are there, but people don't seem to recognize those words, those new words, and there comes a blockage. They would rather learn or are more familiar with the other vocabularies from English rather than the new ones in Kiswahili. But I think, one step at a time. I would like to now question your experiences, Dyoniz and Sharifa. You went to secondary schools in Tanzania. You probably did primary school in Kiswahili, I'm assuming, but you can correct me. And then you switched to English in secondary school. Can you share with us what your experiences were? How was it for you to suddenly switch into English? And do you think it should continue like that? Or maybe there could be another way of doing it? And if there's another way, you can share it with us as well. Sharifa, would you like to start, please?
Yes, I would. Thank you. Okay, so in Tanzania, there's primary schools and secondary schools, and in government primary schools, Kiswahili is used as a medium of instructions. They use Kiswahili to teach subjects, and English is only used as a teaching subject, as a subject just like other subjects, mathematics, civics, etc. And in secondary schools is where English used as a medium of instructions. Now, the problem is you have studied 7 years in a government school and the medium of instruction is Kiswahili. Now, suddenly you're adapting a new language, which you are not used to. There comes a language barrier. And there are some people, some students like me, who take maybe a English language course before, that's called a pre-form 1 before the second one, that at least helps you or prepares you for that life, for that sudden changes in secondary school. But that one costs money, and there are students who cannot afford that pre-form 1 course or English course before secondary school. So that is going to be hard for them to understand what is being taught at school. Now, I'm telling you, there are some people who fail the exam not because they don't know, but because they don't know how to explain themselves. They don't know how to deliver what they have in their minds. We are given essays to write on, we are given topics to discuss, and the language that we have to use is English. I've learned 7 years in Kiswahili, now you're telling me to write or to discuss essays for 3 pages in English. I have the point, I have the idea, but how do I translate it in English? Now that's hard. People fail for that. And not only that, I've said it before, even for teachers, it's hard for them to deliver exactly what's needed to be delivered just because English is not their first languages. So they under deliver. That's a problem. I don't get what I am supposed to get, and from the teacher, and I also do not write what I am supposed to write, as in this is what I understand, what I have understood, because I do not know the language. That's a problem.
Yeah.
Wait, before Dyoniz, I'm sorry, Sharifa, do you think it should continue like that, or do you have an idea how to change it?
I think they should just choose a side, pick a side. If they have decided English to be a medium of instruction, then they should start it from the primary school. Or if they decided Kiswahili as a medium of instruction, they should proceed it from the kindergarten to university. Yes.
Thank you, Dyoniz. Now,
I just want to say what Sharifa said. I wanted to just to underline it. I mean, I don't have. I mean, I also made a kind of similar situation or experiences. And what is also troubling the student is also this issue of cramming. I mean, without cramming, it's also very difficult to to proceed. So it's not a matter of understanding, but it's a matter of putting the thing in your brain, and you cram and cram, which is not very good for the education. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Sharifa, you said it all. I can also just underline, because those who have money can prepare themselves, and those who don't, even if they're smart, they're left behind. Dyoniz, you still need to add, what do you think could be the ways? Are you also on the pick the sides?
Yeah, for me, I think the way forward, I would also argue the same. Maybe if the government decided, I mean, we want to use Swahili, then it should also proceed with Swahili until the higher learning institution. I mean, and I know it's difficult, but it can be someday implemented. Or the government could also opt bilingual education, and so bilingual education, that to have like a two language taught at the same time. And yeah, and there are also specialists based on the bilingual education, and they can also prepare some scheme in which the government Ministry of Education can follow. So yeah, I think what also Sharifa said is also very true. I mean, to stick to one or having a kind of a bilingual system. We also have countries like Quebec and etc., which are also within this scheme. And yeah.
Maybe I would also like to add, because I feel the need to join into this discussion. I went through the same system, and being a parent now, I see many parents have chosen their own way by picking a side for their kids. When they know everything else is going to be in English, they start from the beginning teaching the kids or letting the educational language be English. So that struggle of switching will not be there. But as we all know, not everyone can do that, because those will be private primary schools. So yeah. Now we've spoken a lot about Kiswahili and English, but we all know those are not the only languages in Tanzania. Yeah. And this is the time where I would like to pick up 2 questions from the chat that also address those other languages. Yeah. So we debate here on Kiswahili and English, but we all know that there are other languages, and some of us probably speak them too or not. Now, people are curious to know whether the use of Kiswahili endangers local languages that maybe are no longer, that leads to them not being used anymore. What are your views? So Tradu, you can also you can actually start. You haven't spoken in a while. What do you think? A language like that, does it kill or take the place of other local languages?
I will say all languages are equal. But Swahili play more role here. I mean, in the region, in Tanzania, Kenya. Maybe at home to speak the another language, and in the school to combine Swahili and English. Mm-hmm. Maybe that is just my opinion, my point of view.
Okay. So not necessarily killing the other languages. Dyoniz?
Yeah.
Would you like to add?
And I mean, language is like life, as is our culture. If we kill, as well, I mean, we just abandon this language and just concentrate ourselves on Swahili. For me, it is not good.
Okay. Dyoniz, quickly,
yes.
maybe.
Yes, I would like to add something. Yeah, it is true that Swahili, it endangers other languages. There's also a project which was funded by the Scandinavian countries at the University of Dar es Salaam. They were trying to make a comparison of the dictionary from different tribal languages. So we have like Kifipa, Kipare, and etc. That project was done to some of the languages. And the reason behind it was observed that the usage of the language, the terminologies, and etc. are being repressed by Swahili terms or terminology. So Swahili languages, it endangers other languages. But what can be done? But I think also the suggestion of Zra is good, that we can, because like speaking Swahili is also connected to opportunity. If you don't know Swahili, you cannot interact with others. You cannot for the job. It's also difficult to find a job and etc. Maybe we can also divide, like using local languages at home or at social events and etc. And also retain also the place and position of Swahili for the wider public, because we also want to interact with the people from other tribes. Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. So yeah, they can coexist.
Yeah, they can coexist.
It just depends on how to handle it, and families, certain settings play an important role to uphold it. Sharifa, give us your views on this. Whether Kiswahili kills or causes other local languages not to be spoken anymore.
That Kiswahili causes other languages not to be spoken anymore, because we still have those ethnic groups, and people do speak their ethnic languages, their mother tongues.
So you agree it does endanger?
The native languages and Kiswahili, they both coexist. I think nothing is affecting another language.
No, but statistically, these languages are endangered. The research shows they are endangered. Very, very, as there are some of the language there, the number of the speaker are going back, down. They're really endangered, to be honest. We have this a big tribe like Haya, I don't know, Maasai, which the number of speakers cannot be observed much more compared to other tribes,
smaller ones. Yeah,
smaller ones.
Yeah, but let's just go to a more direct question. Also, maybe lead on your research. How many Tanzanians, or do you think every Tanzanian speaks a local language and Kiswahili, or are there Tanzanians who only speak Swahili and not a local language?
I do not speak a native language.
Unfortunately, I do not.
I do not either. Sra. Okay, I guess the person who asked the question has the answer right now. So there is a danger, right? Of losing local languages, that they
Yes.
don't coexist.
In 10 years, we'll have another story. If something will not change, we'll have another story to tell. Yeah.
But I also have to add, it all in the home setting, a local language can sometimes not be upheld when the parents are not from the same ethnic group, which is in my case the case. But in families where parents are from the same ethnic group, the local languages are still being upheld at home. So even if they're younger, they would still speak it. So that could be maybe also an explanation, I think.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe it is like in Cameroon, all people who are living in the town, in the city, they cannot local language. You know, in the city, it is a big multicultural communities. So they speak just either English or French. So it's like Sharifa and Dyoniz may be grown up in the city. Right?
Yeah.
You're right.
We've spoken a lot about experiences. Now, let's have a wider picture and think more, not local anymore, but continental wise, Africa Union. Now, we've heard during independence, a number of countries were convinced and accepted that Kiswahili could be a language of unification. Now, Pan-Africanists, a number of Pan-Africanists have been advocating for Kiswahili to be used as a language for the entire continent. And what do you think? What role would this vision play in today's debates of the African Union to have, this as a language? Kiswahili is the language of Africa. Yes, Sra.
The question is very complex.
Yeah.
But I will try to give just my point of view. Kiswahili as a language could be as a Pan-African language because of two reasons. I mean, according to the language family, Kiswahili is connected to Arabic, and a lot of countries speak Arabic, and Swahili, it is belong to the Bantu family language. And the most of, if we take Central African countries, the most of language there are Bantu family. So it is easier maybe to learn Swahili as a second language or third language in the school than European language, because they have the same structure, I mean, according to the syntax. So, and it is good to maybe to learn Swahili for African integration. But Swahili is just learned in Anglophone country like Ghana. Ghana is far from Tanzania, from Kenya, where Swahili is learned there. But in Cameroon, no. In Gabon, no. Why not just take the model or take the Swahili to introduce it in the educational system? That's the first step. And to learn it as foreign language, maybe with another European language or as a first African foreign language. That maybe it could be, we don't know. And it depends on the government, I mean. Egoism, you know, and this nationalism Oh, my country, we speak French. Why learn another one? To take Swahili as a foreign, as an official language, it could difficult. But if the African Union is strong and take decision, and another countries, government countries take decision, it could be. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you,
I-
Dyoniz.
I just want to add, in Cameroon, it also told there's a university which is also teaching translation studies. I don't know. I forgot the name of the university.
In Buea, the University of Buea.
Yeah, they also have Swahili also as an option for students at the university. I think African Union, some countries have showed a strong interest in teaching Swahili, South Africa, for example, and we also have South Sudan. Yeah, I think the usage of Swahili will bring unity among the Africans themselves, not to praising the European languages, thinking in European languages, and categorizing even kind of say Anglophone or Francophone. But by that time, the idea of common Kuruma, that united Africa, then united language, I think we will have we will have our own identity as a continent.
Okay, thank you very much. Identity. Sharifa, what are you?
Okay, I just wanted to add what they've already said. I think if the whole of Africa speak Kiswahili, I think it's going to facilitate communication among Africans, because Africans, they do speak different languages. Yeah, the West Africans, they do speak Yoruba, there are those who speak Zulu, Africans, and so many other different languages. But if you could have one language which unites all Africans, we could have a very effective communication. And it can also help to facilitate economic integration. Yeah, I think if Africans themselves speak Kiswahili as a common language, that could promote maybe economic activities. Africans could cooperate, do trade together, and they could unite and be as one. As okay, Dyoniz already said, could also promote the unity, identity as Africans, the commonness, etc.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, last but not least, a question directed to Zra. Zra, give us your view. You know, you're from Cameroon, and I assume you know West Africa better than us. We might think Swahili is so widely spread and liked, but what do people, now I'm giving you this load in West Africa, not just Cameroon, think of Kiswahili? Do they even know that there's this language that is spoken and not just English? And so what are their views? Or those who know, what do they think about it? What do they say? Which difficulties do they see, and which the opportunities? We have spoken about them, but just let us know the perception.
It depends on the level. I mean, if it is in primary school or secondary school, in the university. In the university, in primary school, Swahili is not topic in secondary school. But in the university, the people try to think about this one, how to learn Swahili as a foreign language. But Cameroon or another African, West African countries have their difficulty with their local languages. They could not, they cannot, or they don't have possibility to teach their local language in the school, and to import another language is more difficult. So and another people say, like scholars, I mean, who came to Germany or to Europe to study, to do their PhD, when they came back, they want to learn Swahili, to teach Swahili, but it depends on the government. The government, I think, will not accept it. Yeah.
I want to add something because I also studied, I learned Hausa at the university also. When we are talking about East Africa, one also think about Swahili, and when you talk about West Africa, people, they think Hausa. Because Hausa is a lingua franca. It's have speaker in Ghana, in Nigeria, in Cameroon, in Niger. People, they think, why not having Hausa? I mean, people, we love Swahili, but among themselves, they really like Hausa, because Hausa, it's for the economic integration or economic reason. Is also profitable for them because it's unites among themselves West African region. But I was also, I mean, I don't know, I cannot give a clear picture of what they think of having Swahili, but indeed themselves they wish. And the people, I met some of the people from Nigeria, they would say, I want to learn Hausa so that I can trade with the people from the southern, I don't know if it's the southern part of Nigeria, etc. So there's still a discrepancy also among the different parts of the.
I think it is this connection is between Anglophone countries, not as a Francophone and I mean Cameroon, Chad, Central Africa. They don't have connection. I mean to West Africa. You know, Swahili, it's good for Anglophone countries. They see, yeah, we can connect because they have English as a common language. So we were colonized by Britain, so we have the common history. So we can maybe change, not in English, but in Swahili. So I see this connection, but not Francophone and Tanzania or Kenya, for example.
Okay. Sharifa, would you like to add something to this discussion?
No.
On West Africa. Anyways, thank you for bringing in Hausa. Yes, that is also another language that exists. And yeah.
And Hausa, it has also a lot of Arabic words, and I just saw I made some kind of comparison of Hausa words originated from Arabic, and Swahili was originated from Arabic. There were kind of similarity of around, I guess, like 20% of the words. So it's I mean, even though that West Africa, they might opt for Hausa, but even then they testify we have a kind of sister language, the language which we share a donor source language like Arabic and etc. So,
okay, wow, that's interesting. Yeah, who knows? Maybe for our next Net Talk, we might put these two languages at par, because this should not be the last time that we talk about languages. It is just the beginning. Maybe it's going to be Hausa and Swahili. Yes.
And we could also have people from West Africa. They can give you their perspective, no?
Exactly, yeah.
And not forget the Fula. The Fula.
Fulanis.
Fulani, yeah, exactly, yeah.
Yeah, we did that in history. Okay. Now I have a last question for all of you to have the opportunity to sum up and to answer this question and also sum up your view on this World Kiswahili Day and what role it could play and the difficulties and opportunities that are there. To all of you, can you think of areas in developing a nation or the continent where the use of Kiswahili could have really positive impact? I know you've said a lot, I also touched on these points, but maybe you can just come up with a summarization by mentioning pros and cons, and then we shall come to an end.
All right. So,
okay, Sharifa.
I think after this declaration of Kiswahili Day by UN, I think this would bring a huge impact to not only Tanzanians or Swahili speakers or East Africans, but this would bring a huge impact to all over the world. And it would promote tourism. I would like to talk about the tourism sector. There is the cultural influence. Yeah. When people come to these Swahili speaking communities, unfortunately, they meet these tour guides and they do speak in English. And we all know not all these tour guides can deliver what's needed to be delivered in English. So I kind of have the feelings that there's some informations, important historic informations that are left or are not said just because these people are not so much competent in English. So when we allow this, when we accept that Kiswahili should be fully used as a medium of communication worldwide, this would be easier for them tourists to come directly to the local communities and learn the culture of these Swahili speakers, learn the history of these Swahili speakers from the natives themselves or from the local communities themselves. But now it's kind of a hard thing because of a language barrier. And also in education, if we choose Kiswahili, if we opt Kiswahili as a medium of instruction from kindergarten to higher learning institutions to the universities, that would have impact to a quality education. Yeah, as I've already said, some people know they are very competent, they know things, they are knowledgeable, but they cannot say that, they cannot speak their mind because they don't have words in English. So Kiswahili would probably change that. Education, tourism factor, etc.
Yes, so I just have some few sentences to add. So the declaration of this, the day by the UN and as well as the UNESCO, I think it does a very important role for Africans. As you can see, Swahili is the only one language that is being given like a special day of honor. So I think the UN established a space for Africans and the representation of Africa to the world. But my appel or my last word, because I'm not also very satisfied with the language policy in Tanzania. For me, I would argue for the issue of structural, the structural thing of the institute, like it should be changed. And I would also argue for the theme. I don't know if we have a theme like every year, if we have a theme for the commemoration of the 7th of July. If we have a theme, I think it can not only to say it's a Swahili Day, but we should have a theme that we want to celebrate within a year. Maybe we want this year to talk about technology, the use of Swahili in a technological sphere. Maybe next year, and from that we can also, if we need help in something, the world could hear us, because even the UN, they dedicate the thing on this day. So for me, I would argue for the theme, and also the working only for the as a thematic notions.
Okay, thank you very much. A theme for the 7th of July to concentrate on certain issues. Sra, you have the opportunity to also say your views on this continental aspect.
Yeah, I see through this declaration maybe the promotion of the integration also between African countries, and maybe we can think in African language as our identity. I mean, actually, we speak now in English, but we think we think maybe in Swahili or in African languages. So, but declaration is good, implementation is other things. So maybe the first step is to introduce Kiswahili as a foreign language, together with another European languages. We can celebrate the declaration but implementation will be better. This is what I can add to the point of view of other guest speakers.
Thank you very much for these wonderful perspectives, comments, and also ideas on what to do or how it could have been, should be, for sharing with us. I'm just reading in the chat that you talked about the theme, Dyoniz. I think you can see that as well.
Yes, I have seen it. And
so
thank
there
you.
is a theme for today: unleashing Kiswahili's potential in the digital era. Yeah, but I think for us it was really burning what it really means for the African continent. And what we also had in discussion right now were burning issues that we wanted to share. And there's also a question directed to exactly what we were talking about, the role of Kiswahili, this Pan-Africanism. How prominent is such a Pan-African vision in African countries? Is there a sense of African identity beyond national or even tribal identity? Yeah, this question goes deep. He didn't just say national, tribal. Maybe we can start with the identity. We've been talking about African identities. Yeah. Is there a sense of African identity?
Yeah, that's a very difficult question. I mean, yeah. I mean, you can start, Zara, if you want.
Yeah, African identity from cultural perspective, I think it is it is not easy to define, to bestimmen. Maybe national, I mean national, multinational identity, but in Africa, maybe.
Yeah. Dyoniz?
Yes. Okay. Yeah. For me, I think identity in Africa is a kind of fluid, but the people, they have this spirit of Africanness, what's constituted to be Africanness. And maybe I should start with individual cases. In Tanzania, it's very difficult someone to ask which tribe are you, like Goni or etc. People there, they embrace the idea of being Tanzanians. But if you go to Kenya, is another thing. Like if you know that you are a certain tribe, and I mean it's a very complicated matter in Kenya. This is the tribalism and etc. But generally speaking, it is very difficult to talk of a single African identity, because Africa has a several identity, but we can speak of multiple identity of Africans, and the Africans themselves, they have this a sense of being an African. Of being an African. So I don't know if I just answered your question, but
you gave your views, and Sharifa can now also say something on this African identity question beyond national or tribal identity, and then we'll move to the next part.
Or I think Jody said that it all depends on an individual. Some of Africans would accept them as Africans, and some of them still, they'll be like, you're so African. So you still cannot tell whether.
But the question, what is African? Is it from West Africa? Is it from East Africa? Is it from North Africa?
Don't make it complicated now, Dyoniz.
I think that's hard to have an African identity, but we can get there anyway.
Yeah, we've been talking about the promotion of African identity through something that unites Africa. Come on, taking you back to the words that you've been saying. And for those who are living abroad, how are you always identified, honestly? Are you Tanzanians? Are you from Cameroon? Or are you just Africans?
I'm African.
Yeah. So maybe it starts from there.
But not all people say they are African. I have some friends from North Africa, from Egypt, for example. They say geographically they are in Africa, but culturally they are not African.
Oh, okay.
The Middle East, they say.
Yeah, that is, it is a complex question.
Yes,
And I think we will tackle it some other time when we come up with our themes for this day, or for the other net talks. You will be well informed when we start talking about identities and whatnot. Yeah, thank you so much. We could